Why did you let him kill me? It was the clown. Make the clown go away.
Situated in the middle of America, Nebraska has collected many urban legends through the years. From ancient Native American legends to terrifying cannibals, no matter what your scare of choice is, you will most likely find it in the Cornhusker State. Join me today as we take a look into 10 of the many creepy urban legends and hauntings Nebraska has to offer. One of the most haunted places in Nebraska is said to be Hummel Park. It is also rumored to be an ancient Native American burial ground and was once the site of John Pierre Caban's fur trading post in 1823. During the early 1900s, racist lynch mobs of the area would often use the trees to hang their victims. Today, the trees entering the park bow low over the road, and it is reported that at night the apparitions of those who hung are still seen hanging from the trees. Visitors also report hearing screams in the park late at night. Hummel Park is spread over 200 acres, filled with steep hills and wandering dirt roads, adding to the eerie feel of it. The area at the eastern edge of the park is known as Devil's Slide because of the many suicides that have happened here. Erosion has washed the trees away, resulting in steep cliffs and sharp drop-offs. One of the most well-known mysteries of Hummel Park is the morphing stairs. At the top of the park is a long staircase leading down the hill. It is said that the stairs morph because nobody knows the exact number of stairs in the staircase. Every time someone counts the stairs going up or down, a different number is counted on the return trip. If you follow the morphing stairs down the hill, it will lead you to a valley with a decrepit pit area and a deteriorating shelter with various satanic worshiping symbols spray painted on them. People have also often found dead animal carcasses here and believe it to be the site of occult rituals and satanic worship. In addition to the various legends, Hummel Park has also had numerous murders committed in it. One of these murders was in 1983 and involved a prostitute named Laura LaPointe. 4 other prostitutes sexually assaulted her and beat her to death with a 6-foot tree limb and a baseball bat, robbing her of $25. Her body was discovered in a roadside ditch in a heavily wooded area of the park. The most recent murder at Hummel Park is of a 12-year-old girl named Amanda Harris, who disappeared on November 29, 2005, after getting off her school bus 4 blocks from her home. Her skeletal remains were found in a shallow grave inside the park on May 11, 2006. The killer was eventually caught. Just west of Lincoln, Nebraska is a stretch of woods known as Wilderness Park, and it has 2 legends attached to it. In 1894, something went wrong with a train headed north across Salt Creek. The locomotive and several cars fell off the bridge 40 feet below to the ground, catching fire. When all was said and done, 11 people lost their lives. Upon investigating, it was found out that the tragedy was no accident, but sabotage. The saboteur was found and convicted, serving only 10 years for the crime. Many people believe the victims still roam the area near Salt Creek in what is known as Wilderness Park. People hiking through Wilderness Park at dusk report strange whispering noises, and those in the area of the rail bridge claim to have heard heavy footsteps behind them, but when they turn around, no one is there. Many people believe the spirits of the Rock Island rail disaster wander the area, seeking justice because the man who killed them got off easy. Today, there is a marker along the Jamaica North Trail that marks the spot of the tragedy. The other legend from Wilderness Park is of the Witch of the Woods. During the early 1900s, there was a period where several children went missing around the Lincoln area. Most people at the time thought they just ran away, but there was a few who believed they disappeared into Wilderness Park. When one boy went missing, his sister claimed she saw him with a woman who was known to live in a shack in the park. She was called the Witch of the Woods by the locals because of her seclusion. Police searched the woods for the boy and found all the bodies of the missing children. When they questioned the woman, all she said was complaints of children running all over her property. Because there was not enough evidence to link her to the murder, she was not arrested. When the locals found out, they decided to take matters into their own hands. The Witch of the Woods was found one day, hanging from her neck from a tree with a chain. Many people claim that if you walk the woods at night, you can hear the witch's moans and chains rattling. Some people have claimed to have found buried chains that lead to the tree where she was hung. It is said the Witch of the Woods was buried by the tree where she was hung with the chain still around her neck. There's also a shrine in the Wilderness Park that memorializes the children who died all those years ago. On the Omaha Indian Reservation is a 45-foot tall hill. This is the burial place of native chief Blackbird. He was buried here, sitting on top of his favorite horse. Lewis and Clark visited the honored chief's gravesite in 1804, leaving behind decorations to commemorate the chief. The spirit of Chief Blackbird is not the reason why people gather at the gravesite every year on October 17th, though, but the spirit of a young woman who was murdered upon the hill almost 2 centuries ago. In the early 1840s, a young couple fell in love back east. The young man told the girl his plan that after he finished schooling, he was going to travel abroad for a time and then return to marry her. The young woman agreed to wait for her beloved. Unfortunately, the man never returned from his trip after several years, and the girl believed him dead and married another. The newlyweds moved east, settling in northeast Nebraska atop Blackbird Hill. On October 17, 1849, the young woman was surprised to see her long-lost fiancé walking up the path toward her home from the Missouri River. The young man was also surprised because he believed he would never find her. Overjoyed, the young woman confessed that she never stopped loving him and only married someone else because she believed he was dead. The young man told her that while on his travels, he survived a shipwreck, but it took him 5 years to get back to America. When he did finally get home, he found his mother had died and his fiancée married another and moved west. Determined to find her, he joined a wagon train headed for California and searched everywhere along the way with no luck. Heartbroken, he started the long trip back east along the Missouri River. That's when he came across a path leading up Blackbird Hill and followed it. Evidently, fate intervened and brought the long-lost lovers back together. The young woman told him that when her husband returned, she would tell him she wanted to be released from her marriage vow so they could finally be together. The young man waited in a nearby bush. When the husband returned home, she explained everything to him, asking to be released, but he refused and begged her to stay. She refused, and in anger, the husband attacked her with a hunting knife. Devastated at what he did, thinking her already dead, he gathered up his bleeding wife, ran to the cliff at the top of the hill, and jumped with her to the river below. Realizing something was wrong, the man ran after them, catching up in time to see the couple leap from the cliff. hearing the woman's final screams of agony. The young man collapsed in grief and then wandered the hills aimlessly. He was found, half-starved and ragged, by a group of Omaha natives who took him back to their village to recover. Today, the path between the cabin and the cliff's edge remain barren. Nothing will grow here at all. According to legends, every year on October 17th, the woman's chilling screams can be heard from atop Blackbird Hill. In the early 1900s, there was a town called Portal that today is a ghost town. In that little town was a small one-room schoolhouse. The teacher there was said to be a kind woman, but one fateful day she snapped. To this day, no one knows what caused her to lose her temper and commit one of the most gruesome acts on her students. She is said to have grabbed a hatchet and went to block all the exits, then methodically murdered all of her students. Some versions of the legend claim that the crazed teacher decapitated the young students and placed their heads on the desk to be found later. All versions of the legend agree that she did cut out their hearts, one by one, taking them to the nearby bridge and threw them in the water. When she came back from her crazed state, she realized what she did, and she returned to the schoolhouse and killed herself. The schoolhouse has since been moved to Papillon, Nebraska, due to the massive floods at the original location, and it is even used as a field trip destination for the local students. Today, people refer to the little old schoolhouse as the Hatchet House and say that if you are there at night, you can hear the crazed teacher moving around inside. As for the bridge where she tossed the hearts away, it is not now known as Heartbeat Bridge because it is said that if you walk across the bridge at night, you will hear the thump-thump of the murdered students' hearts. Some people have claimed to see the wandering spirit of the teacher here as well. L Street, located 5 miles southeast of Nebraska City, is known locally as Seven Sisters Road because of a grisly legend attached to it for more than a century. According to legends, the road had 7 hills at one time, and a young man lived on a farm with his family close by. After having a fight with his family, he hid in the woods until his parents left one evening. Still angry about their fight, he either lured or forced each of his 7 sisters one by one outside with him. He led them each to the top of one of the hills where he hung them. The current road has changed through the years since the murders. The hanging trees have since been cut down and only 4 of the hills remain prominent. But since that dreadful night, the area has been reported to be haunted by the restless spirits of the 7 sisters. Reports say that screams of a terrified woman calling out for help can be still heard. Others have reported unexplainable sounds of bells ringing from a nearby private cemetery. Many people have also claimed to have their cars mysteriously stall, headlights dim, speedometers freeze, and windows roll up and down on their own. Other reports include disembodied voices, whispers, shadow figures, red eyes appearing that watch you, and sudden wind changes. In 1911, construction began on the Argo Hotel. It was completed in 1912 and immediately began serving the area's many railroad passengers. 12 years after opening, the building was sold and the name changed to the New Meridian Hotel. In 1940, the building became a doctor's office and hospital called the New Meridian Clinic. Through the years, there was a constant complaint of a baby crying somewhere in the building, but no babies were ever found. In 1994, the building was sold again, and the new owners restored it to its original grandeur. During renovations, a burlap sack was found in one of the walls. The sack was said to have the skeletal remains of a baby. The owner buried the bones in hopes of giving the little one some peace. The story of the bones is not what is first perceived. It turns out that the bones were actually from an animal. As with most renovations of historical properties, it seems that it also stirred up the paranormal activity. The most common activities reported are unexplainable cold spots, doors closing with no reasonable explanation, pictures moving on their own, and wandering apparitions. One particular spirit is reported by guests and staff is of a woman they named Alice. She is often seen in the basement area where she is heard crying because she is looking for her baby. Along Nine Bridges Road on the outskirts of Grand Island, Nebraska, is a bridge known today as Witch's Bridge. Legends say that long ago, a woman lived in a house on the other end of the bridge. She and some neighbors were suspected of being involved in witchcraft and devil worship. The townspeople took matters into their own hands and burnt both the woman and her house. Since then, things on and around the bridge have not been right, and it is believed that the witch cursed the bridge. It is also said that it is haunted by the spirits of those who have died here. In the time when the railroad maintained the bridge that was adjacent to the current bridge, workers were trying to free an ice jam that had built up when a terrible tragedy occurred. Some of the residents had come to watch the explosions while standing on the adjacent road bridge. In one blast, the bridge with the onlookers shook violently, and a woman holding her baby stumbled and fell. The baby went over the side of the bridge into the icy waters below. The workers and onlookers searched for the baby but never found it. After the search party stopped looking, the mother continued walking the riverbank searching to no avail. Through the years, visitors to the bridge claim that if you stop on the bridge, your car will shut off. Others claim that if you leave your car, the witch will come and try to pull you over the side of the bridge. Other reports claim that a woman's sobbing and a baby's cries can also be heard. Prospect Hill Cemetery in Omaha, Nebraska began as 10 parcels of land in 1856. Much of the land is believed to have previously been used as native burial grounds and for the early Mormon pioneers before officially becoming Prospect Hill Cemetery. It is now one of the oldest cemeteries in the state and perhaps the most haunted. In later years, more land was added until it reached over 35 acres. It is estimated that 15,000 people are buried on the grounds, many being early pioneers, politicians, landowners, philanthropists, who all helped build the city. One interesting grave belongs to Ann Wilson, the infamous madam who ran Omaha's largest brothel. In her later years, she became a philanthropist. As requested in her will, she is buried under 9 feet of concrete, so no respectable resident could dig her up. She is buried with her partner, Dan Allen. There have been no more burials accepted at Prospect Hill since the 1970s, but through the years, many of the graves have been vandalized and other gravestones have been lost to time. There are also many unmarked graves on the grounds, and many believe that all this post-mortem indignity has created restless spirits. There have been many reports of ghosts seen roaming the grounds, but the most well-known spirit is of the Lady in White. She has been reported to be seen at the cemetery since 1874, looking for her children. Other reports from Prospect Hill Cemetery include disembodied voices, whispers, laughter, shadow figures, and the feeling of being watched, and people being cornered in a mausoleum by an unknown presence. The Argo Hotel was constructed in 1928 to replace the old commercial hotel in Broken Bow, Nebraska. The street level of the three-story building consisted of a lobby, restaurant, beauty salon, barbershop, ladies' dress shop, and a ballroom. On the second and third floors held 52 guest rooms with public baths at the end of the halls. In 1932, 20 more guest rooms were added. When the Great Depression reached Nebraska, the investors sold out, but the hotel continued to stay open until finally falling into disrepair. In 1984, a local businessman, Ray Brown, convinced the community to raise funds to renovate the hotel into apartments for retirees. The idea was not successful and the building was turned back into a hotel. In 2005, Ray, along with new investors, renovated it again, this time concentrating on the street level. Today, the hotel boasts a Western hotel motif with traditional copper tile ceilings, columns, and granite tops. Outside was also renovated and looks reminiscent of the original 1928 era. Through the years, there have been many reports from staff and guests of paranormal activity, including unexplainable noises, furniture moving by itself, and strange, unexplainable booms late at night when no one is around. There are also reports of various apparitions seen throughout the building. One is believed to be the former owner, who was reported to have died in the hotel. There are also reports of a ghostly gray-haired man wandering or sitting in the cigar room, usually after closing. Also reported is the apparition of a red-haired woman who is believed to be the spirit of a witch that was murdered and buried in a nearby cemetery. She is said to usually be seen in the hallways upstairs. The Temple Theater was built in 1906, long after the University of Nebraska opened its doors in 1869. When the university began to outgrow its space, the building functions on campus were combined, and the theater also served as an activity center for students. The Temple Theater does have 2 recorded deaths. One was a student who died in the 1940s during rehearsal when he fell from overhead rigging above the stage. The other is of Dallas Williams, who was the department chairman of the building and died here of natural causes. There have also been several reports of unexplainable happenings in the theater, including chairs being thrown across empty rooms, the sounds of tapping as if someone is practicing dance steps, but when it is checked out, no one is there, and also no other source can be found. The most well-known apparition is of Dallas Williams, and perhaps the one behind the chair throwing. Dallas was known to have unusual teaching techniques and was known for his wild behavior and throwing chairs. Another apparition reported is of a young girl who is seen walking the corridors, only to vanish if someone gets too close.